G'day, Ben from Melbourne here, and this is part 2 of my favourite Australian punk records. I don't know how Richie and Jocelyn from MiddleLifeCrisisRants managed to squeeze it into about 20 minutes. Anyway, check their videos out, they were great, and of course this is my response to that, featuring all Australian stuff. I have kind of stretch the rules a little bit by not just choosing albums but multiple formats, so there's some 7-inches in there and mini albums as well, but I think that it all tells the story of Australian punk much better if I keep those things in there. And of course, as I said in the previous video, if you don't see something that you reckon should be here, it's either because I don't have it or I don't like it. So I think we finished off with Division 4 last time, so I don't know how many we've got left because I just lost count after 48. And I've done this the best I can. It's kind of an order, and you know what it's like. Next week, these will be in a completely different order. It's really hard to rate music. So let's just start with a blast of Lubricated Goat and their album Paddock of Love. Noise rock punk, featuring the wonderful Stu Spasm, who did time playing a bit of guitar with Beast of Birdman early on. Also ended up in the band Curent. I think he's still based in New York, not 100% sure anymore. But Paddock of Love, this, as you can tell from the cover, is probably not going to tick all the boxes of today's PC standards, but it is a great noise rock punk record. Just check out the film clip for In the Raw in this, but maybe don't do it at work. Next, a 7-inch from the mighty Stems. So if you just know the Stems from At First Sight, which is a great power pop catchy song, this is a bit more of the hard stuff. Still catchy, but definitely got heaps more of a 60s garage punk influence on here. Really, really good stuff on Citadel. Dom Mariami, what a absolute genius songwriter he was as well. Yeah, from 85, I think this one is. Yes. Another 7-inch, and what I think is as punk as any punk single ever, and that is the B-side of the Purple Hearts, Early in the Morning. And have I got it up there? Just a Little Bit. Now, if that doesn't get your heart started, I don't know what will. This is like if you're talking about punk sound as a sound, this has got everything you want in there. This is frenetic, and it's all over and done under 2 minutes. Next up, some 90s punk from the mighty Meanies with their album 10% Weird. Band I used to see a lot in the 90s. Link Meaney, the singer, he wrote and played all the songs. Live, he just sings. Killer type band. Wally Meaney is also the bass player for the great indie rock band Even, who are still carrying on. And the Meanies are still doing it these days as well. But I think 10% Weird is by far their best record. There's equal amounts of like just catchy punk, almost, don't want to say pop punk, because that'll steer in the wrong direction. But it's catchy, and that alongside a few songs with a bit of the "whoa" in there as well, if you know what I mean. Now, speaking of bored, with their debut mini album. Now, this is just Guitar City. We're talking Detroit punk influence here. There's something about that Geelong scene in the late 80s, early 90s that they just turned up the fuzz and noise on guitars to the max and pumped out some classic Australian rock and punk albums. Pretty much anything by Bored you can pick up and it'll pin your ears back. Next up, we've got the mighty Hardons with Smell My Finger. Could have picked a number of their records, but I thought I'd go with where it kind of started. these guys don't take themselves too seriously, as you can tell from the song title on this one, I Farted. Very much catchy punk. Like, they can be full on at times, but just good fun, great band. This, I think, was on Waterfront. One of the pioneers of Australia's, I guess, sort of pop-ish punk. When I say pop, please don't think of that bullshit like Blink-182 and Green Day and all that fucking waste of time. This is really good stuff. Next, the godfather of Australian punk, Ed Cooper, with his band The Aints and their live album SLSQ. This has got songs which are not very punk length. There's like a 13-minute version of Nights in Venice. So basically this is just Ed doing Saint songs live, plus an amazing cover of Del Shannon's Runaway. This would have been a hell of a show to be at. The guitars are at 12 and the rhythm section is just pumping. This is like played with a lot of snarl, which Ed hasn't played with for quite some time, but I am looking forward to the shows in November with the newly reformed Saints to play the anniversary version of I'm Stranded. Next up, we have got some yob rock with the Onyas, and that about sums it up. The album's called Get Shit Faced with the Onyas. Yeah, Mad Macca, no surprise, would end up playing guitar with the Cosmic Psychos. If that doesn't tell you about this record and what you're in for, nothing will. Okay. Classic 7-inch. Lipstick Killers with, Hindu Gods of Love. Sadly, they weren't around for very long. I think it was this band. I might have this wrong. I'm sure there'll be some old fuckers out there who will correct me, but I'm sure that tragedy hit this band, and that's why there's very little material around there of the mighty Lipstick Killers. This is a really great, catchy song. It probably borders a bit on pub rock, I suppose, but pub rock and punk are intrinsically linked anyway, but no denying this is a killer song. And now let's get swampy, literally, with the Sinus and their single This Is My Happy Hour, but we're interested in side B with Swampland. Started off as scrappy punks in the late 70s in Perth. Kim Salmon, of course. Boris Sujovic, who would also, those two would end up in B Suburban, go backwards and forwards to Beast and the Sinus. If you like Gun Club and Cramps and things like that, you're gonna love the Scientists. Many people say that the Scientists invented grunge back in the 80s, and I'm talking not the classic rock sounding grunge like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. I'm talking bands like Mudhoney and Tad and stuff like that. Probably all would tip their hat to the Scientists. Next up, one of the great 12-inch EPs, The New Christ with Divine Rights. Now, The New Christ was fronted by none other than Rob Younger of Radio Birdman. This one, I think it was like late, 87 this came out. Got a very young Charlie Owen, who would end up in The Beasts on guitar, and also Lewis Tillett on organ. Yes, organ on a punk-influenced record. It's got a bit more swagger than your normal sort of punk stuff because of, Rob Younger's that generation before and took a lot of those like kind of hard rock, bluesy, think of bands like the Coloured Balls and things like that, which were definitely influenced by blues, but then they stripped away a lot of that, but kept like that rhythm and that propulsion of that style. And yeah, you're gonna hear a bit of that in here with impassioned vocals and like some amazing, you know, songs. Like I Swear to start off is just gonna smash it over the head. This is great stuff. Probably, yeah, for you pure punk purists who like hardcore and shit like that, you might be wondering why this is here. But it will kick you in the balls, no doubt, if you have it. Give it a chance. Well, purists, this is for you with Queensland Razer with their great 7-inch Task Force and Stamp Out Disco, which I find pretty funny. Yeah, I particularly like the Task Force one, which is about the corrupt Queensland police force led by the liberal right-wing Joe Bjelke-Petersen, who used them like his personal army at the time in the late 70s and the 80s. You can read all up about that on the internet, but killer single. Next up, the shot in the arm that we all needed in the early 2000s. That was Eddie Current, Suppression Ring, and this is the band that brought us the mighty Mikey Young, Fingers in Many Pies. Just no bullshit, great guitarists, deadpan kind of delivery of the vocals by Brendan, and just tight as a frog's ass rhythm section. Just killer debut record and one of the great live punk bands of, you know, the last 20 odd years. Fantastic. Only released 3 records initially, come back, did another one, which is like really good as well. But the first 2, especially this one, the first one, self-titled one, just magnificent stuff. It's a real banger. It's what punk's about, man. Right, Tim Evans has got 3 records. So this was the Bird Blobs, which I think was the culmination of what he was trying to do in the Sea Scouts. This is very sort of influenced by the Birthday Party and the Scientists, bands like that. This is really murky, dark, kind of rhythms like played more on like the toms than say like straight up hi-hat beats and things like that. It's, yeah, this is a fantastic record. The opening song, Billy, is just amazing. This was back around, probably not too long before the Eddie Current record, early 2000s, late 90s, I want to say. But yeah, they released just the 2 records. Tim Evans, I think, is over in the US now. But yeah, if you ever see either of the Bird Blob records, but particularly this one will blow your socks off. Now, a 7-inch from the Psycho Surgeons, just great, late 70s, or is it early 80s, I think. Put out by the mighty Crip label. This one was like a reissue of, yeah, Horizontal Action and Wild Weekend. Just fast, fun, catchy punk rock. Really, really cool. I think this was like a one-off. There might have been, I think I got 1 more 7 inches of theirs, but I think that's like more like a demo kind of thing. But yeah, they're classic, like both sides of this single. Now, pub rock, yob rock at its finest. The Cosmic Psychos with Go the Hack, with the iconic album cover of them on the Earth Mover there. Now, yeah, this is the one, probably got their best known song, Lost Cause, but it's also got Pub on it. Yeah, classic lineup with yeah, Ross Knight, Bill Walsh and Peter Jones back then. Still going. Ross Knight is the only original member now, but still great fun live. Yeah, I always tell this story, but I love the story of when they first went to America. They were playing a tour with Mudhoney, and Mudhoney were big fans and imported like their records back in the day and thought their songs were hilarious because of, you know, that was all about, basically about drinking and going to the pub and they did a sound check, and Steve Turner and Mark Arms said, play some of your funny songs, and Ross Knight's dry answer was, what funny songs? Anyway, I fucked that story up a bit, but you get the gist. Now, one of the great debut albums, well, it's a mini album, and that's the Lime Spiders' Slave Girl. Mick Blood's got a voice that could strip paint off walls. Just straight up riffage. Obviously, yeah, a bit of the radio Birdman influence in here, and even bands like Celibate Rifles. And they go on to, you know, probably do slicker stuff, but it was always had that attitude in there, and that good sound, like. But, you know, so it was inescapable in the mid to late 80s, that production sound that probably did make a few bands sound a bit slicker than they are. But this is the raw original stuff. Can't recommend this one enough. Okay. You ever wondered what Jim White and Mick Turner did before the Dirty Three with Warren Ellis? Venom PE Stinger. They released a few albums, but this 7-inch Walking Around is just phenomenal. This is what you need if you're going to get anything by Venom PE Stinger. It is just fantastic, angry delivery of the vocals, really original guitar and drumming for a punk band, as you can imagine, with those two in it. This is an absolute shed burner. Speaking of which, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Television Addict by The Victims. Now, this is a band which from Perth, which the original members have got Dave Faulkner, who would go on to the Hoodoo Gurus, and of course James Baker, who was on the first Hoodoo Gurus record, played with the Beasts, played with the Scientists. The man has drummed on every important band from that era's records, and they're good ones too, not the shit ones that bands would do later on. Not that any of those bands release shit records, but you know what I'm saying. Television Addict, just, you know, you can, it's like teenage punk stuff of its era, like how people are complaining about social media today. It's same thing, but catchy, great song. And on Flipped Out Overview, the B-side's pretty ass-kicking as well. Classic Australian track. Now, this one has also got a relation to the Hoodoo Gurus, the Mighty Fun Things, with Lipstick backed by Savage. Two killer, as it says on the back, full-scale attack. And this has got Brad Shepard, who would end up being the rhythm guitarist in the Hoodoo Gurus as well. This is one of the great punk rock singles that come out in Australia in 1980. Who can believe it was that long ago? Recorded at Forest Glen Sound, Queensland. A lot of good punk rock come out of Queensland, as we're about to find out when we get down to the real nitty-gritty. Now, some may argue, but you'd be wrong about the B Suburban being in here, but all of these dudes come from a punk rock background of some sort, and they come together and just created this unholy mashup of death, punk, blues, rock and roll, AC/DC, just you name it. It's like anything that's dark and murky and rockin' is on here. And to me, this is one of the finest Australian records of the 80s. Just brilliant stuff. Hard Work Drive and Man, Hard For You. Open this. If that doesn't do it for you, you don't have a pulse, baby. Okay, another live record besides the Aints. And I didn't know what one to pick from this band, but when I put this on, this performance of the Celibate Rifles, this is actually recorded at CBGB's. This record, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, this just smokes. Man, they like are so tight and so slamming on this. It's incredible. would have been a hell of a gig to go to. And I reckon these have probably, to me now, become the definitive versions of the songs of this era, like, you know, Back in the Red and Netherworld, Pretty Colours. They even do a fantastic cover of Burn My Eye, the Radio Birdman song, on here as well. Killer live record and a great document of a band in their prime. Classic single coming up from the mighty God with their single on All Go Go, My Pal. What can I say about just this song is like, not only does it get stuck in your head, it's a great riff, it's a great vocal performance, it's that Geelong sound, basically, that Geelong punk sound. And this is like, these dudes were only teenagers, and this is a mind-blowing track from a truly great band. And of course, members of this band would end up playing in Powder Monkeys, Hoss and Board, and other legendary Australian bands from that Geelong scene. Right. Oh yeah, this was hard, but I decided to go with Birthday Party, Prayers on Fire, one of their early ones. Just, I guess you'd call it art punk, I suppose. This is like nothing else. These guys didn't sound like they were listening to the same stuff as the Radio Birdman or Hitmen or any of those bands like this. This would have truly sounded out there and brutal and would have been just impenetrable at the time. But yeah, you know, opens with Zoo Music Girl and Cry. It's also got Nick the Stripper, King Inc. on side 2. Classic record with people in this band who become huge players in the Australian music scene, of course. Nick Cave and Mick Harvey, but also unrecognised genius on guitar, Roland S. Howard as well. This is a damn classic Australian punk rock record, even though they never like to call themselves punk. I'm calling them that. These guys, I think, were happy to call themselves punk, and that is the Australian X with their debut, X Aspirations. This is raw. There's like friggin' massive bass riffs in this and skeletal sounding guitar, and oh my god, the vocals on this, I think Ian Rilen's vocals is just, I don't know how much whiskey and razor blades you have to swallow to sound like that, but I don't want to go there, but I'm happy to listen to it. And yeah, it's just got, Suck, Police, Good on You Baby. This is just brilliant. The only fault in this seemed to be a trend for bands to cover the Batman theme. I think the Jam did it as well. I like this one better, but it's like, just put on another one of your own awesome songs. But disregard that. This record is freaking killer. Not a hint of rockabilly in it like the US X, a whole different bag. Same era. It's just a coincidence, I guess, that they come up, someone had to call themselves X, and I'm sure that there were a lot of people, like-minded people at the same time. Killer classic record. Now we're down to the top 2, and I reckon if you watch my channel, you could probably guess what they are. And number 2, Radio Birdman, Radio's Appear. This is the Australian version, which I like a lot better, but the only thing I suppose I would have loved to have also had Aloha Stephen Dano on here, which appears on the international version. But you cannot go wrong with TVI, Murder City Nights, Descent into Maelstrom, Do the Pop, New Race. Like, just classic with Rob Younger, Dennis Tech. They're like the Mick and Keith of Australian punk rock. Incredible band. The footage I've seen of them in the early days, they looked amazing. Was lucky enough to see them several times when they reformed, and they were still kick-ass. Rob Younger still had a great voice, still a great performer. Unfortunately, I was overseas when they played what's probably going to be the last shows they ever played this year. From all reports, they were really, really good. And yeah, their second album's really good as well, which came out quite a bit later, I think in 82. But this is just pure, unbridled, in-your-face Detroit influence punk. Cannot go wrong. And the only thing that's better than that, of course, the Saints, I'm Stranded. Just one of the great debut records of all time. They were the first. I'm Stranded was, I think, NME Single of the Week or any other week in 1976. I think they pipped the Dam by a month or two of having the first thing out. Nobody in Australia knew who they were, not even the record company who EMI UK contacted and had to track them down, and apparently it was like a week before they got an answer because the members didn't have a phone and they had to leave a message at one of the members' mum's house. I love that sort of stuff. But this just stone cold classic, can't be beat. Amazing band, great vocal performance by Chris Bailey. Ed Cooper, one of the most undersung guitarists in Australia. This is incredible. And of course, yeah, Kim Bradshaw and Ivor Hay, a tight but loose rhythm section, if you know what I mean. But that's perfect for what this is. Like, it is like if you got any different kind of rhythm section, be a different album. But yeah, of course, I'm Stranded, One Way Street, the cover of Wild About You, which I first heard this version, and then later on when I got into 60s garage punk, I heard the Missing Links one, Messing with a Kid, which has to be one of the great punk rock ballads, if that's a thing. Amazing song. No Time. They even do a cover of Kissin' Cousins, which is so bizarre, it's great. And then it just ends with the 1-2 punch of Demolition Girl into Nights in Venice. Incredible record, incredible band, and that's my number one. And thank you if you lasted through both of these long punk rock favorites from Australia video of mine. Yeah, it was a pleasure to do it. Probably my 1 and 2 will never change. There's a lot of room for movement in the other 48. It's really hard to pick your favorite stuff and put them in order. I can pick favorite stuff and say this is in no particular order. So thanks again to Joaquim and Vinyl Richie for the initial videos to give me a push to do something, and so I could represent Australia. See you in the next one.